Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Shakopee School Board meeting of February 9th. Sarah, could you please call the roll?
Here.
Hallett. Here. McKeon.
Here.
Romansky. Here. Swanson.
Good evening.
Tucker. Here. And Bowerman.
Yes, ma'am. We will proceed with recognizing anyone here tonight, a large group, who would like to speak to the school board. If there is anyone, they just need to come forward and tell us their name and sign in.
Or done, and we signed in.
Come on up, Barb. So Barb knows this. We chatted in advance for the benefit of the audience. The way this is handled, where someone would like to speak to the board, they were not on the agenda, is we're going to give them 5 minutes. They thought would be adequate to speak to the board. We're not going to respond. We're not going to act on anything that's shared tonight. But we're very happy to listen. So please share with us your thoughts.
My name's John Sora. My daughter is a special needs student with Shakopee Public Schools. Her name is Mackenzie. She's here tonight. She's been diagnosed with a rare inherited neurological condition. Collectively, the disease is called Batten's disease. It's a terminal condition. She's only expected to live between 2 and 12 years. She's going to be 5 here in April. The disease has been highly degenerative. It's taken away her eyesight, her ability to walk. And we're very appreciative of the Shakopee schools for giving our daughter the opportunity to come to school and participate with the other children. At first I wondered if there would be any benefit to even bringing her into school. And I've seen that having her with other kids has been very good for her. And after careful deliberation, my wife and I came to the difficult decision that we wanted to have a do not resuscitate orders put in place. So that in the event that she had a cardiac arrest or stopped breathing, that they would not do CPR or intubation on her on the way to the hospital. Currently, Shakopee Public Policy 518 regarding DNR, DNI orders says that the school district will not honor a request to withhold emergency care. And what we're here to ask for tonight is to look at that policy and possibly revise that policy to reflect those of our neighboring Prior Lake school systems, and Edina has recently updated their do not resuscitate orders. And really, our main focus for being here is we want to try to revise the school board policy to allow school personnel to honor our wishes and to honor the wishes of future parents that may be coming through the school system who are in a similar situation to us. Now, the probability that our daughter will have an incident in school is probably pretty low. If she gets too sick, we're probably not going to send her to school. But there is that possibility. And we want to make sure that they don't try to do CPR on her, they do not try to intubate her or do anything extraordinary. And the other piece of it is, there's a lot of, it's kind of a hot topic nowadays. We want to try to make sure that whatever policy you have in place will absolve the school district of any liability issues that arise from this. We recognize that there's only a few school districts within Minnesota that currently have revised their policy throughout the U.S., but it seems to be a trend that's getting looked at. So that's all I have to say, really.
That's it.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I think, Barb, you're aware that this topic has been put on the agenda for our next meeting, which is a board learning session where we'll be able to be a little bit more prepared and have dialogue with you. So thank you for coming and sharing that tonight.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Probably going to clear out your room a little bit.
That's all right.
Wonderful, thank you.
Is there anyone else that is here tonight that would care to speak? Michael, you coming to speak or to?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
I don't mean to rain on your parade, but I hope you have a backup plan. I'm getting pushback from people in town. If the mayor runs his non-referendum community center through, you're in jeopardy of losing. So I just want to make you all aware of that. It's out there, and it's a good possibility. So,
Thank you, Councilman Lewis. Appreciate that. Anyone else? All right, we'll continue with the agenda. First thing we're going to do is need a motion for consideration of the agenda as presented, unless we have any additions or changes, Ron.
We do. I would like to, in front of you, you have a personnel item, change to item on consent agenda 4.1.3. And that's the approval for the non-surge contracts, and you have a recommended action and removal. And then also adding an item to consent agenda 4.1.10, request for unpaid leave of absence. And you have that staff request there. And then also, Chuck, I think you had a request.
Like 4.6, remove from consent.
Okay. So 4.6 we will pull. And Chuck, would it be okay if we made that item 8.1 new business? Okay. So with those three changes, are there any others?
Sarah, I don't have any others, do you?
That is all I have.
Okay. So I'd be looking for a motion for acceptance of the agenda as presented with those additions.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion further? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the agenda with those additions, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to consent. You can see that we just talked about some of those changes. I'll take a motion for accepting the consent agenda as modified. Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the consent items as modified, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. So with that, we will move on to item 5.1. We're just going to stick with the order. Okay. So SEEF, we're going to ask our friends from SEEF to come forward. I think Kathy Bush is going to represent SEEF. Kathy,
To sit or to stand or?
why don't you sit for whatever your presentation is, and then
Okay.
nice to have you back here, Kathy.
Thank you, it's always good to be back. It feels like home, a little bit, relocation. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Board of Directors of SEEF. And if you're not familiar with SEEF, SEEF is an acronym for Shakopee Educational Endowment Foundation. And we're very fortunate in the Shakopee community and the Shakopee School District to have an organization like this. I'm relatively new as a board member. This is, I think, my third year, but SEEF has been around since 1990, and they've been awarding grants to school district staff since 1992. And since that time, there has been over $275,000 awarded for projects and programs that otherwise would not have been able to happen because those are things that probably would not have fit within the operating budget of the district. So this year, with the 25th anniversary, we once again are able to provide dollars to Shakopee district staff who have written some very creative and innovative grant proposals. Early in the year, district staff, and it's not just classroom staff, but it's all staff of the district, are encouraged to submit grant proposals for funding consideration by SEEF. And a grant proposal can be written for up to, a request for up to $2,000. Prior to submission, the teacher or other staff member who's writing the grant must have pre-approval from the building principal or from the supervisor, just for review to make sure that that's going to fit within the scope of everything else that's happening in their curriculum. Grants are submitted by October 31st. The SEEF Board of Directors is the group that meets to review those grant proposals. We meet in late November, early December, announce the awards by mid-December, and then they are to be carried out during the current school year. So these are things that will be happening then, these projects in 2014-15. I should mention too that Reggie Bowerman is a longtime SEEF board member, and there are 10 of us on the board currently. This year, there were over 60 proposals submitted, which we were pleased to see. That's more than we've had. We would like to probably see even more, but as the number of students has grown, the dollars awarded has grown, and so have, fortunately, the number of proposals now been able to be increased. We did review 34 proposals, and we did select proposals that will total over $25,000. Now, most of those proposals, many of them, the full amount requested was not awarded, but in order to balance and to be able to fund more proposals and maybe be a catalyst for new innovative ideas, we did select to partially fund a number of them. The proposals that were selected represent all ages in the district, so everywhere from pre-K to the students that are at Central Family Center through the high school are touched by these. And this year, the proposals that were funded are in the areas of math, science, social studies, reading and writing, music, and technology education. So you can see it's pretty broad-based. And I just, on behalf of CF2, would like to thank the district staff that guided us in this process. We had an opportunity for clarification. We met a few times before we made the decisions, and we had an opportunity for clarification and had an opportunity to ask questions. But in particularly, I would like to thank J.P. Jacobson, who provided a lot of guidance for us around technology. Interestingly, and not surprisingly really, more of the proposals are around technology. And so we get a technology request for Chromebooks, and then we might get something for iPads, or we might get, all kinds of different things. Well, the CF board wants to make sure that the request fits with the district plan and what the current use is. So we thought that was pretty important, and so we did get a lot of assistance with that. I would also like to, besides the district staff, like to thank the classroom staff. I think it probably was almost all classroom staff that submitted proposals this year, for taking the time. It's a one-page application, but it does take time to dream the idea, to think through the details that are requested in the proposal, and then to carry that out if it's awarded. So I think that speaks well for the staff, who showed that creativity and showed that concern for wanting to go that extra step for their students. And then, of course, we could not do this at all if it weren't for the generosity of the people in the Shakopee community and even beyond. CEF operates with a foundation. We do not use any of the principal when we award these grants. And we have received generous donations from local businesses, civic organizations, individuals, families, alumni of the district, and just individuals and families that live in the district. So I really want to thank them for providing this opportunity for CEF and of course for the Shakopee students and staff. So I don't know if anybody has any questions before I check. I know board members and staff are probably pretty familiar with this process. We're fortunate to be able to do this every year. I do have a list of the grants that were provided. I assume board members have them, so I just leave it here if there's anybody else.
Any questions for Kathy?
I don't know what the bank will do with this one. So, all right. Well, Scott, and to the entire board and district, on behalf of the CEF Board of Directors, it's my privilege then to present to the school district and board a check for $25,370 to cover the proposals for this year.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Kathy, I'll take my CEF hat, or my board hat. I'll leave my board hat on, take my CEF hat off. On behalf of the school district, thank you very much for the presentation, for the generous donation, and for all that CEF does in support of the children and education in Shakopee. It's very kind what you guys do every year, so thank you very, very much.
And in the scope of a whole operating budget, $25,000 is minor, but this represents a lot of really wonderful ideas. I mean, I just want the community to know that. But as a former board member and having had the opportunity to watch this for over 20 years, the ideas that have come forward, it's just amazing the innovation that has come out of our district staff and the new things that are happening for students.
I would echo that. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it.
All right, we will continue
Yes, thank you.
with the agenda as is listed, and we'll move to item 6.1, which is picking up from where we were 2 weeks ago, which is the resolution, calling for a resolution for a special election on May 5th for a new referendum. Sarah's going to pull up the presentation. As I said, anyone here tonight, or probably a lot of people here tonight, are keenly aware of what occurred at our last meeting. Tonight, we will take action as a board seeking final approval. And for the benefit of the larger audience, maybe some folk here tonight who are here for that reason, and maybe for the benefit perhaps more so for the people who will be watching online and trying to understand exactly what it is we're planning to do, I'm going to walk you through a shortened version of the presentation that I made last time. I'll spare you the longer version. You won't have to sit through that. But I'll try to hit a few of the highlights just to keep everyone on the same page. So the first point that I would make very good. So the first point I would make is to offer a little context. This is a graphic representation of enrollment in Shakopee over time. It's about a 20-year span. The black represents actual enrollment data. The white represents projection. And as you can see, and it's a consensus here in the community, the town is growing, the school district is growing, and that's part of the reason why we are here tonight to deal with this issue, is because of the growing enrollment. It's important to note that this graph shows the historical enrollment trends, and we do a projection. In fact, this goes through 2023. And the reason it does that is because the last time we did or commissioned a study for demographic purposes was in 2013 in preparation for the referendum that was in March of last year. We look out 10 years, so that's why it goes to 2023. It's about the window we can be comfortable with. But it's important to note that historically we've done these surveys a number of times, and they've always proven to be very, very accurate. So were we to show this, we didn't, but were we to show versus the black what the projections were, you'd see very, very little difference. So we have a high degree of confidence, if you will, in the white projections going forward. Our buildings, as you might not be surprised, are straining now. We are at or above capacity across the board. This is not just a high school issue. It's important to note that. So with that in mind, in March of 2014, we went to the community with a referendum seeking at that time to build 2 high schools. And that was rejected by the community very clearly. But the space issues that drove that did not go away. They remain. And if anything, the students are here today. We can look at enrollments in the younger grades. We can see the movement coming into Shakopee, the projections that we talked about. And this is a K-12 problem. It's important to note that this is not just a high school problem, even though we a lot of times talk about the high school. This is something that will allow movement of grades to allow space and pressure valve, if you will, across the K-12 system. So it's important to know that. So though the referendum did not pass, the board was faced with a situation where we still needed to act. The problem still remains. So in light of that failure, meaning the referendum, the board came together and said, what do we do next? And the first step was to put a plan together to go back to the community, to engage the community, to listen to the community so that we could come back with a proposal. So we did that, with the intent being all along to come back with a plan that we felt was appropriate for students in Shakopee, but also something that the community would support. You have to have both. So the process that we went through is summarized on this slide. For the better part of the last year, we engaged in what I would call a listening tour. And that involved a lot of different steps. It began immediately after the referendum. Why did that happen? What were people thinking at the time? What was the rationale for why they voted the way they did? We engaged a number of community-based teams, 4 in fact. And those teams came together over a number of months to meet, to talk, to dialogue, to debate. And in the second bullet, it refers to the fact that there was a facilities action team. I know there's a few members here in the room tonight who met very diligently and reviewed a lot of data, came up with a lot of different options, and ultimately narrowed that down to 4 that they then felt were the appropriate options to bring forward. We had a group called the Guiding Coalition. I also see some members of that group here tonight. That group was a little bit different. They took a lot of information from different teams, the facilities team, the technology team, the academic team, and they kind of put that whole recipe together and provided advice and counsel to the board. We had 3 different surveys along the way, one of which was done right after the referendum that was rejected to understand again what the community was thinking. We did one that was in parallel, if you saw the special edition of the Shakopee Valley News. We went out to the community with those 4 options and asked what the community was thinking. And then we did a professional survey in December I think it was. And the intent there was to be a scientifically valid survey that would be statistically significant in terms of its representation of the Shakopee community. So we conducted 3 surveys. Along the way, probably with some people here in the room, we've had many formal and informal discussions as a board, as administration, as staff. There's been no shortage of those. And we also had the recommendations from the district administration in terms of what they felt as professional educators we need to consider and think about. So there was lots of listening with lots of people with lots of opinions that we all had to factor in. So at that point, the ball was back in the court of the board. It was now time for us to take everything we heard and ultimately come up with a proposal to go forward. The lens that we were looking through as a board, and this is a slide that I used last time, and I claim ownership of this because it's my terminology in terms of the guiding principles, but the board was looking at for a solution that captured these things. Call them guiding principles, call them gotta-haves, call them shared beliefs, whatever you'd like to call them. This was the lens that we were looking through when we were coming up with the solution. And the plan had to deliver the following things. It had to deliver the physical space, the bricks and mortar, that optimized the academic plans that we were putting in place. Academics is number 1, so it had to jive with what we're doing academically. We were emphasizing smaller learning communities and areas of interest, and you'll hear more about that as we go forward. We knew and we wanted it to be more technology rich. It had to accommodate that. We knew and we desired more opportunities for participation for all our students, and that's not just in athletics, which is sometimes what we tend to default to. It's all kinds of co-curriculars, be that arts, academics, and athletic. We always kept an eye on the fact that our goal, our objective, our mission is to deliver an excellent education so that the kids come out of Shakopee schools prepared for whatever comes next, whatever path they're going to choose, career or college. We knew it needed to be in an environment that fostered a sense of belonging, of connection, if you will. Couldn't lose sight of that. And we also knew it's just more than it's more than walls. It's also the things that go on and take place inside of them. It's the staffing, it's the programming, it's the support services. So that's the lens through which we were looking for a solution based upon all the input that we received. We also recognized in looking at all the information and taking into account all the input that we received that there was an opportunity here to hopefully find some consensus and hopefully in this case find some unity. And there seemed to be unity in terms of what at least the community appeared to be telling us and what we were hearing, that there was a lot of energy behind Warren High School. There was a lot of energy behind the recognition that we needed to be sure that we were committed to students and that we're delivering a top quality education. But the other common link was that there was a recognition that we needed to have and we needed to be sure that we provided increased opportunity for students in a lot of different ways. So that could be provided through improvements to indoor and outdoor facilities. Again, arts, athletics, and academics. It's not one or the other. That this is a recognition that the facilities that we're talking about are used not just by our students, but they're also used by our community in some fashion. That education needs to be personalized as much as we possibly can to keep kids engaged. And that, as I said, we knew that this was going to build around and incorporate an integration of technology unlike we have seen before. It has to be prepared for that. So with that in mind, the administration came back to us and they said, all right, in light of everything we've heard, in light of our expertise, we recommend the following. We recommend that you do a 2-question ballot, and that those 2 questions be one around buildings and facilities. In this case, recommending an addition to the high school and then improvements there to the other facilities in the district. And question 2 would be a technology levy, a separate question to improve technology in the district. So the board now had all of the recommendations from every group, all of the input we've received. And what I'd like to do now is dive a little bit deeper into those questions that we'll be acting on tonight. Question number one is the building question. Let's just call it that. It is a $102.5 million building bond that will add to the existing high school. It will allow us to accommodate 3,200 students and the movement of ninth grade from the current junior high to the high school. So this configuration would be a 9-12 configuration. That was also something we had consensus on from all the different groups who participated. By moving ninth grade to the high school, it allows us to then free up some space in what are now junior highs, convert them back to middle schools, 6-8. So that would be the next step. By moving the sixth grade from the current Pearson sixth grade center, it now frees Pearson up to return to an elementary, thus relieving pressure in our current 5 elementaries. So it's important to note, and I'm going to reiterate it, that this is not just a high school plan. This is a comprehensive plan to deal with space issues that are pervasive in our district, but attempt to solve or address all of those problems. So that's part of question one. Question one will also call for, I talked too long, it froze up on me, so Sarah's going to pull that back. But it goes on to say that it's about improving the facilities, both outdoor and indoor, for student and community use. And of course, it's going to call for an upgrade to safety and security. So that's question one. And I'm going to peel back the onion just one more layer to show you the cost. Now, everyone's going to go right to it with their eyes, but I want to say something and try to provide a little context. The board's in a little bit of a catch-22. And what I mean by that is we have to bring something forward to the community. We have to put a price tag on it. And so we have to do some estimating. We have to do some conceptualizing. We have to put numbers to it. And I'll cover those in a second. But I want to emphasize, and I'm going to emphasize it at the end, that these are concepts at this point because we purposely and consciously will engage the community, the users. We're going to put user groups together, and we're going to engage our staff to help us refine these plans. We're going to have a budget to work within, and we have some ideas, but we haven't put bricks, together with mortar just yet. So that's important context to have. So of the $102.5 million, the largest chunk, no surprise, is to add an addition to the current high school. That's $86 million that will take us up to a capacity of 3,200 students, effectively doubling the size. Another $8.5 million will be used to expand and improve outdoor facilities, namely things like on field. That is something that we recognize, irrespective of what's happening with this referendum, needed to take place. This will now allow us the funding to make improvements to on field, so it can be a show place and a place we can be proud of when we have visiting teams come to that area. It's used by a lot of different sports. It will also allow for improvements to the existing high school site because the additions will take up some of the space that's currently open or currently fields. So we must reconfigure some of that. And the third point under that second area is that we also plan to improve the space that is south about a mile from the high school to provide ball fields and some open spaces for outdoor use as part of this process to accommodate some of the program that we wish to put in place. So that's $8.5 million. The next line item is to improve and expand indoor facilities for student and community use. That's a $6 million item, primarily taking the form of an activities center to accommodate those needs. Again, remember, it's not just athletics, it's arts, academics, and athletics. And then another $2 million for upgrading safety and security in all buildings, for a total of $102.5 million. Okay? Again, the bricks aren't set yet in stone, but conceptually, this is where we're at. We have some ideas, but we intend to engage the community to help us understand, assuming passage. This wouldn't happen until passage occurs. But assuming passage, we would engage user groups to say, now help us put the pen to paper and really make this come to life. All right. Question 2 is the technology levy. And that is intended to provide funding for a number of things. Funding for technology itself, devices, equipment, things that will be in the hands of our students and our teachers. No surprise. It will also provide funding for the integration of technology into our academic programming. By that, I'm referring to things like digital textbooks, apps, resources that we're going to tap into for the use of the technology. So not just the technology itself, but how to use the technology. A third bucket I would call your attention to for funding here is around the training. Probably one of the worst things we could do is spend money on technology and not have people either use it or know how to use it. So we are emphasizing the fact that the training must be included in what we're going to do, so people know how, people being teachers and kids, know how to use the technology. And a fourth point I would make is that, it's the last one there, is that it's important that the levy provides for stable funding. Probably one of the biggest mistakes we could make is to embark down a path of an academic plan, and this is an academic plan, it's technology, but it's academic hand in glove. To embark down a 5-year plan that we've already started on in terms of what we believe is right for Shakopee, around technology and around academics, only to find out a couple of years into it, we don't have the funding to sustain it. That would be short-sighted. So the intent of this levy is to provide funding for all the things I've talked about over a period of time. We're not trying to do this in one fell swoop. We're learning as we go. We're being cautious. We're being prudent. We're not trying to go from 0 to 60 overnight. So consequently, this is a plan that will take time to fully implement, which is why we're looking at a 10-year levy. Okay? In terms of the financial impact on you and I here living in the community, you can see it listed there. We've talked about this before, both monthly and annual. The two together on a reference $200,000 home here in Shakopee is less than $300 a year. That's our reference point. All right? So, as a board, we believe that this plan delivers against the things you see listed up there. We've listened to the community. We know and believe we know what kids need and what's appropriate for them. And we think this plan meshes both of those quite well. So it reflects community input and it reflects what we believe is important to roll out education here in Shakopee. We also know that enrollment's continuing to grow. It's already oversized now, so it will accommodate that. And as we said before, our vision is aligned that the bricks and mortar that we build, it's less important about where those walls are and how they're configured. It's more important about what we do inside of them. But the plan that we're putting in place, that we're proposing to the community, takes into account the important things that make a larger single high school operate like smaller learning communities. Individualized learning, keeping kids engaged, keeping them connected, and all the support services that are important to do so. It's not just bricks and mortar. The timeline, we're at point number 2 up there. We've already had the first point at our last meeting. Tonight we will be acting to take final approval and bring that referendum officially forward. Assuming that happens tonight, you can look to see absentee ballots on March 20th with the actual referendum occurring on May 5th. And we're going to have more polling places in place. I got a smile last time, I'll be able again. So in summary, we tried diligently to engage with and to listen to the community. We think that this is a plan that delivers against both students' needs and against those guiding principles that I itemized before, that lens we were looking through, the things that we said we got to have. It will result in 2 ballot questions, 1 building, 1 levy, with the election being in May, and again, expanded almost general election-like polling locations. There's some slight differences, but I think it's 18 polling locations, if I'm not mistaken. I think at this point, it's appropriate for me to recognize a lot of different people. This is a rather momentous occasion for us to take this action tonight. The road, you could say, is ending in one sense and the journey starting in another. But this has been a process. And there's a lot of people to thank, not the least of which are my colleagues sitting around the table who have put in countless hours and effort and energy. The people on the teams, and I see people out there who are on those teams, we thank you for your effort in doing that. We thank the administration and the staff for all of your time and effort. We thank the community. Some of you are here tonight, probably just for this purpose, for paying attention, for engaging, and we ask you to continue to do that. We're all focused on the same thing. We're all focused on what's best for Shakopee's kids. And as a board, this time, we will take action to endorse this as the plan that we're going to go forward with. So we ask you to join us in that journey. At this point, I will ask for a motion before we open it up for any further dialogue to adopt the proposed two-question referendum with a referendum occurring on May 5th that will also call for that special election, and it will direct administration to submit our plan to the MDE, the Minnesota Department of Education, for review. May I have that motion? Second motion. Second, okay. With that, would anyone on the board care to make additional comments? I know you spoke last time, but. Okay. With that, we'll move to a vote. And Sarah, do we need to do a roll call?
Yes, please.
Okay, so would you please call the roll?
Berg,
Aye.
Hallett,
Aye.
McKeon,
Aye.
Romansky,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Tucker,
Aye.
and Bowerman.
Aye. All those opposed? I guess not. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations. All right, we will move on to item 6.2.
Thank you. I think Mike, you want to come up, and I think you have a couple folks with you. Just teeing up for before Mike gets here, as part of, as you know, we've paid some close attention to our secondary redesign, and at the same time, Mike and his staff have worked on what's best for the early years, and so we've heard from Mike the guiding change document, I believe, last month, and the document that we all have in front of us on the expansion and enhancement process is in front of us, and as exciting as the opportunities are in the referendum K through 12, with the approval tonight, moving in a first reading format and moving forward with the possibilities and enhancement process of Central Family, I think there's some equally as exciting things on the forefront here. So with that, Mike and your team.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity tonight to join you. We don't have a lot of time, so we really worked to condense this down a little bit, but joining me tonight is Heidi Nissler. She's our special ed coordinator at Central Family Center. And Kimla Turner, our early childhood coordinator at Central Family Center. We're all here to present to you our recommendation for phase 1 of our enhancement plan going forward, and then hopefully, if there is some time, take some questions from the board if you have any clarifying questions about this proposal. So in short, I'll keep this as brief as possible. I've been at Central for about 3.5 months now, coming up on 4 months, and it's been a tremendous opportunity. We've done a lot of great work together. We've done a lot of listening, a lot of input gathering, and in short, through a variety of methods, we've gained a lot of input from the community, input from our staff at Central, and input from district staff as well. We've been reaching out to different folks to hear what would be the best of the best early childhood program for our district. And in short, here is a synopsis of the findings, but I'll just jump right to the recommendations. What we'd like to do as part of a 5-year plan for what we're calling phase 1, which would be for implementation for the 15-16 school year, would be to open up 2 full-day, everyday preschool classrooms for 4-year-olds. And that's a big step. Central Family Center doesn't currently offer anything daily, all day for kids. And if you look at our legislative direction in our state and the country, you see that this is the direction we are heading. And it's exciting to see our district kind of out in front of this. So we want to take the first step and open up 2 full-day, everyday preschool classrooms for 4-year-olds. We also want these classrooms and all the existing classrooms to have a curriculum focus around STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. That feedback came through loud and clear, through community surveys, our own staff work, and district staff work. And frankly, it's already in place in our district. You look at our kindergarten classrooms and all day, everyday kindergarten, STEM is a huge component there. So why not attach onto that at an earlier age with our 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds? So STEM will be a big focus. And then we would also be offering up before and after school care for our families. We want to make these 2 classrooms for next year to be as inclusive as possible. And some of the feedback we received was We love the idea of an everyday opportunity for our kids. It would be even better if the building were open before and after school so we can drop off our students, for our children before school or after school, and have that opportunity for our families. And joking, kind of not, but I'm a huge baseball fan, and one of the big themes that came through the survey was from We Field of Dreams. If you build it, we will come. That was a huge theme, and so we feel for the phase one of this process, opening up 2 full-day, everyday preschool classrooms for 4-year-olds with that STEM focus, with before and after school care available for families who would need it at a tuition-based level, is exactly what our community is asking for when it comes to the early learners in our community. So we are excited to offer up this. Next steps for us would be to get some registration materials prepared, talk with you guys obviously, and then we have some subgroups that are currently working to put design to this larger proposal for next year. So that's a lot of information trying to condense down into a short period of time. But with that, we'll take questions regarding the proposal.
Questions from the board? Mary?
Yes, Mike, do you think that you'll get increased participation when you start adding these especially the 4-year-old program?
Yeah, feel free to jump in as I answer some of these. But yeah, according to the survey, the number one selection from our community was to open up programming for 4-year-olds more frequently. By far, the most popular option was everyday, all day for 4-year-olds. And then a clear second in the poll was half day, every day for 4-year-olds. And then after those two, it was some distance for our 3-year-old program. So knowing that the community is asking for that, we had almost 500 responses in the course of maybe 48 hours to the survey. 4-year-old programming was very, very interesting. Some of the comments that had come back in live conversations were, we currently don't enroll in the Shakopee public schools for early childhood, but if you offered this, we would certainly come back. And so that was, it's what our community needs as it's growing.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's a really big vision over the next 5 years, and we found that the barriers are transportation, it's finances, it's things like that. Having the wraparound service does help some of that, some of the transportation issues with folks. There's more work for transportation to come, but we just really wanted to be clear and hit the big target first and do it really, really well. And if we have lots of waiting lists and people knocking on our doors, then so be it. We'll turn it up and we'll turn it up. So, yeah, I think we will have the customers.
That was my next question. Early childhood has often been known for having a waiting list, first come, first served. Are we going to be expanding it so there's a little waiting list, but not as prevalent as we've had?
I think we'll be good. I mean, we're talking about the numbers, and with the 2 added rooms, and there's a possibility of modifying some of the existing programming. So we could have a half day. We have a half day, 5-day half day already. We could have a half day, 5-day in the morning as well. So I think we'll have the folks there for sure.
So the waiting list.
Oh, the waiting list. We currently don't have waiting lists right now, except for some of the more frequent kind of programs, the highlight times, like in the mornings. So we're adding to that, as well as adding a couple 3-year-old sections when we had combination classes of 3 and 4-year-olds together. We're splitting that apart. So when we make some of those 4-year-old, then we had to add into the 3-year-old components. So I don't think we'll have waiting lists if we do. One of the big things I think too we found was marketing. And because we're kind of behind the traditional time when we register for preschool, it was really loud and clear that people were confused about what happens in that building or didn't know what happens in that building. So really looking at some marketing, making it easier to access for registration, so having that going live online, which will be new. Thank you.
Other questions? Anyone?
I appreciate you getting the 4-year-old started before my son turned 4. So I appreciate that. My question to you is, have you figured out how the before and after will work? Is it going to be staffed by our people, or are you going to hire out, or that's still in the works?
It's in the works. We have a strong, we've had some good communication already with YMCA. So we're not prepared to sit today and say that's where we're going to go, but if you look and project to the conversations that we've had so far, it certainly is looking like the YMCA would be a great partner to continue this process with, to offer before and after school. So in short, a projection is I see the YMCA partnering with us.
Okay, they seem excited. Great.
Yes, Scott.
Quick question, I know you're not prepared to talk about numbers or whatever, but what would minimum success look like in those 2 classrooms? If you had to just throw a minimum number out there.
For kiddos?
Yeah.
Well, I think we're thinking each classroom would be 18, but when I kind of crunched the numbers today, we were looking at more like 45 to 54-year-olds, above and beyond what we are currently servicing, and about 10 to 15 additional 3-year-olds. The focus wasn't really tied into 3s, but we didn't want to give up our 3-year-olds by adding the 4s. So still we're adding to that 3-year-old group by 10 to 15 kids, so that's about a class, a section of 3-year-olds. Does that help?
Along that point, one of the things in my mind is, my background is obviously elementary education, and so when we moved forward with a four-year-old all-day, everyday programming, my mind immediately went to, this is gonna, how similar will this look to a kindergarten classroom? And so when the number 18 is thrown out, our target for kindergarten is 20, so 18 would be a success, I believe, in each of those classrooms. One of the things that Central always prided itself on is smaller than the expectation when it comes to class sizes and adult to student ratio. So when I hear the number 18, that's what I would consider a success.
I just guess when Scott asked that question, my mind immediately went to what tangible result might we see? And on that first MCA that the students take after, are we going to see an elevated score, and is that something we're going to be able to track?
I think if you look at the research that's out there, the old research and now the new research of states, Washington State and stuff, I'd have to say yeah, especially being tied in with the school district, so that starting for 3, we're aligned throughout the whole thing up to 3rd grade. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
One of the things I'll brag a little bit about Central is when I came on board, and I don't take no credit for this, but the community should know that time has been spent at Central Family Center to establish what a 3-year-old academic expectation and a behavioral expectation would be, and we've done the same for 4-year-olds. And so knowing that those are in place based on early childhood state standards, that K readiness is obviously the number one piece for us to get right with this. So knowing that we know those already, what a 3-year-old needs to do, and what a 4-year-old needs to do, to have the kids there more frequently and on a daily basis, we're pretty confident we can get that.
And based on Minnesota standards and some of our assessments, and then it was aligned with half-day kindergarten. So we may have to revisit and see if the alignment follows through up until all-day K. So, no, I think it's really exciting. And we actually have Dave here, Dave Orlovsky, created this tool. So now we really are able to track those kids, and we will be able to follow up all the way without intensive manpower and paper and pencil to do that. So,
Other questions? Only, I guess it's more of a comment that I would make. If you look at the agenda, we're not tonight talking about budgeting and staffing, but obviously that's information that we would need before we can take any formal action. So that's something I will be looking forward to seeing as part of the proposal when we move ahead. So look forward to seeing that in addition to the exciting stuff here.
yeah. And knowing that we know that it needs to be sustainable.
Right.
So it is being funded by school readiness dollars and scholarship dollars and then tuition. So we know that needs to make sense.
Very good. Mary?
Any changes to the special ed party program?
I was waiting for that question.
One of our subcommittees is the inclusion committee, where I'm going to be working with general education staff and special education staff from our preschool programming to figure out what kind of inclusion options we want to see going forward, especially in our full-day 4-year-old programs. From there, it's going to be working closely with Julie Menden to see what is financially possible, what we can offer in this district. I've started conversations with other districts that offer full-day programming to see what kind of special education services are integrated into those types of preschool programming, knowing that we want to do what's best for kids within the resources that we have. And the goal is to have a strong special education component to our programming going forward.
One last pass. So, Rod, were you looking for us to take
No, I don't think
action?
we need to take any action tonight, just to thank you, because it's not easy work, and I really appreciate the effort you put in. And Mike will come back now next month at the regular board meeting to make the final recommendation with budget, with staffing numbers, and then we go forward. But in the meantime, you're good to go as far as getting the information and your registration materials and so forth, and get your kids lined up and families lined up, and we'll figure it out. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good stuff. All right, we'll move on to item 7.1, which is the draft calendar, school calendar for 15, 16, 16, 17. And I think, Rod, we're going to
Yeah, thanks for this. So if you look at the draft of the 15-16 calendar, it's pretty much your basic calendar built upon that. It's got the 2 weeks during the winter holiday. It's got a week for spring break. We graduate, I believe, on the 11th of June. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yes, that's right.
What we decided to do, though, is build forward and present the 15-16 calendar as is. And then if you look at, as a board, if you look at 16-17, we met with our teachers union, we've met with, as administration has had a chance to review this. We'd be recommending in this first reading that we approve, for a first reading, the 15-16 calendar, your traditional calendar. And then 16-17 is built in a way where we start early in August and end early in May. Obviously with the high hopes that we would pass a school referendum, and in doing so, that's when the shovels hit the ground. And so what we're hoping to do, again with the early calendar, is we were able to follow those guiding principles, and we included the 2-week winter holiday, again a week for a spring break. We've got the graduation then would actually be Saturday the 27th of May, so we're, it's kind of that give and take. You start earlier, but you also get to finish earlier. And then our hope in providing a 2-year look ahead is families and staff who are planning family events or trips or holidays together. They get a chance to go ahead and start booking some things and moving it forward. So I'm recommending approval of the first reading of both calendars for 15-16 and again 16-17.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Any discussion or questions?
I'll simply add that I commend the administration for coming forward with 2 years. I think it's probably one question that we as board members get routinely is, do you know when? I just literally had one come the day that this crossed my desk. So even though it's tentative, I can at least share that. So I commend you guys for doing that. And then I think, Rod, you had told me that even though the second year is starting earlier, this was something that the teachers were, you talked to teachers about with staff, and this was not out of line, and they understood.
Yep, and especially, we were actually going to try and bring forward kind of an earlier start to 15 and 16.
Yeah.
But the feedback we got from our teachers union was that they would appreciate and like to have a little bit more heads up. So we retooled this and we went to a traditional 15-16. And then as they looked at the 16-17 calendar with enough forewarning, they could plan, because a lot of the teachers will work in the summers, or they'll do different things in the summer. So we wanted to honor their request, so it seemed easy to make that adjustment. Plus it fits within a referendum schedule should we get the referendum passed this time.
One other question I just thought of it. I don't see it reflected on here. We can probably do the math, but I'm mindful of a former board member who used to ask about balance between quarters.
They match up.
There you go. Because especially now with the changes we're making to our junior high curriculum, Very good. So they're balanced is the key. There's the takeaway. Excellent. Okay. Other questions, comments? All right, with that, we have a motion and a second. We will ask for a vote on approving the first reading of the 15-16 and 16-17 calendars. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None. It passes. Thank you very much.
And Reggie, for those that are maybe going to, for those in the audience or those who might see this calendar, unless we made a mistake somehow on the calendar, the go forward is that a second reading means that we are just approving both of these calendars. So for planning purposes, you can plan forward. We've tried to have as many eyes on this as possible, and we feel like it's accurate, but it's maybe a disclaimer that if you do catch an error here, please let us know right away. It feels good, it feels solid, but we also want you to be able to plan with your families where you want to be and when you want to be there. So thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll move to item 8.1. This is the one we inserted that we pulled from consent, which was formerly item 4.6, the roof opening bid. And I think in this case, Rod, I may turn to you.
Yeah,
Or
and
Mike.
actually,
Great.
and I think I would actually ask Chuck to maybe kind of state for the board kind of your question or your comment, and maybe Mike could answer that for us as we look at roofs.
I don't believe we'll need Mike. I actually just asked this to be pulled for an illustrative reason. Earlier tonight, we just passed a referendum, a large referendum for buildings. And often when we do that, we get questioned about why is the amount so at a certain level. And of course, we always have to have a referendum for a little bit more than what it might cost, because to get only partway through and then have to come back to you for more money just wouldn't work. We actually saw that happen when I was previously on the school board in Prior Lake. They built the building and didn't have the funds to actually outfit that building with desks and chairs and smart boards and the like, and had to go out for a second referendum. And many of those board members didn't make it back. So I want to point out this is a roof bid that will be replacing two roofs in the district, one at Central Family Center and one at West Junior High, for a total of $1,123,000. So when we do get an overage and we don't spend all of the contingency money on our building project, we have that money sitting in their capital fund. And this is a very good use of that money to not have to come back and levy you, take more money. We've already got your money. So we are able to take care of these maintenance things, much like you would want us to. And I don't think anybody would say that they want a roof to leak and damage equipment. So I just want people to realize that we can't hit to the dollar what a building is going to cost. Not one that's going to be hundreds of thousands of square feet. And this is one of the ways that we can actually proactively utilize that money and make sure that we're taking care of a public asset. And with that, I will make a recommendation to approve 4.6.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion or adding on to what Chuck said?
Just that we change that to new business action 8.1 for the.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
8.1.
Yes. Hearing none, we will take a vote to accept the bids, the contract actually, as provided. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 9, other, is there anything else that we need to?
The only thing I would add for an upcoming referendum, I had recently had the question asked of me, what's the difference between city work and school district work? And I tried to craft a Facebook. I'm not that savvy when it comes to Facebook, but I tried to post. I think it went through. It's really important that people understand the separation needs and the partnership needs of a school district and a city. When it's appropriate to partner, as we have in subcommittee work, and you have throughout the years, going back to when Kathy was on the board and others, when there's an appropriate time for the school district to work together on city types of projects, school district projects, we have a long history of working together, and I think that's what you would want. I think that's what we would want as residents and folks that live here. But what we would not want is we would not want the council members telling our school board how to operate school board business, just as we would not want our school board telling our council how to operate their business. Now, let me clarify that. The important part of our work is that this sitting board has the governance to affect a referendum. This board took a vote tonight to take it to referendum. That's a choice that we make. The city can make choices too. Sometimes they go to referendum, sometimes they don't. This board does not weigh in on their decisions. The city and the council makes their city decisions. We don't advise them. We don't sit as a group and give them, here's what you should do, 1 option, 2 option, 3 option. They're an independent governing body. The same was tonight. We get input from all kinds of people, but we don't, as a governing board, have any crossover on cutting deals for this or that. You know, once in a while you'll see inadvertently, you read in the minutes of the Valley News that CFC was automatically going to go to the city. Okay, well, the council members know that's not true. The board knows that's not true. But we don't control what people say. Sometimes people say, meaning well, they may say something that sounds like a deal was made or it wasn't made. The fact is it's important as we look to this referendum to acknowledge the work that the board is going to do, and if the city makes decisions about going out for a referendum or not going for a referendum, please contact them and let them know what you think. It's the same thing that we did, and we saw it when we listened and we learned from our community, but we're not the same. We're not the same. It's really important. Am I nervous to Councilmember Lewis's comments about, you know, that our referendum will fail based on the city making decisions, and it's not one person, it's the city. I am nervous about that. Of course I am, because if people don't understand that this body is making decisions for the students, it could get mixed up. And so part of the responsibility of our community is telling the accurate story. And the accurate story here from a superintendent's lens is that we've done a ton of listening, and we know that the community is, needs to unite. It needs to have some unity right now. And I think that our plan brings the unity together for this community. But let's not have gossip and rumors get in the way of a really great thing for all of Shakopee, which can unite this community, and that's this school referendum. This community asked for it, we're delivering it. Now let's pull together and unite and make this happen for all of Shakopee. Get rid of old and new Shakopee. How about education forward? Let's just move together. It's time to move on, cut the gossip and rumors. So that's my little 2 cents tonight.
All right.
Chairman, is this the time for other business?
No, that was actually earlier.
That was not
in a
really
week form.
clear at all.
Sorry?
That wasn't really clear at all.
There's a forum provided at the beginning of the meeting for comments from the community, and we've had the opportunity to hear those. We'd be happy to talk afterwards or perhaps in a future meeting, but not right now. I just ruled that order.
I don't see a spot on your agenda for.
Go back to item number 2, Chairman Lehman.
Okay.
Item number 2
And
occurred
I
before you
missed that
happened.
portion of your meeting.
You did. So I understand that.
Well, I didn't know. It wasn't clear.
Sorry about that.
This invited me to be here tonight, and I thought we'd have an opportunity to speak.
At item number 2. That's when I asked, and I asked multiple times.
So you didn't ask. So the next meeting is 1 month from now, and we'll have no opportunity to speak on this subject?
We have a learning session in 2 weeks, so you have an opportunity there. You will have an opportunity to informally discuss this with the board afterwards, to make whatever comments you would make now. And you'll have an opportunity at future meetings as well. We will continue with item number 10, committee reports. If we have any committee reports. Eric?
Southwest Metro, we were discussing whether we're going to sell a building in Lydia, and we have other programs to the Chaska River Valley Center Mall here. We are in the process in the legislature right now to get a change to the funding for teacher evaluations. Right now it's just for intermediates and for regular school districts, and they eliminated the co-ops, so we want to get that included. And the third thing is, we had a discussion about taking our co-op and making it intermediate. That involves first getting it through the legislature, then it has to go through all 10 boards of the member districts, and then we will adopt the bylaw. So it's a very long process, but it has been agreed upon by all the board members and superintendent.
Any others? Angela? Chuck? So I will add some items that I sent to the board on AMSD, as I'm prone to be doing, just to share that information with you on the legislative position papers that they've had. Dr. Bezick and I were at that meeting. I also have an item tonight that I will distribute to the board. There'll be a few extra copies if anyone wants to see it. This is their 2015 legislative platform. The AMSD, again, works on behalf of the area metropolitan school districts. But if you have any comments or questions relative to those position papers which have been modified, which I shared with you, I'd be happy to represent those back for you. Any other committee reports? Other items? So we have upcoming meetings and dates. We have the district staff development day, which will occur a week from now. Exciting day of a lot of different events. The board may be present. There may be a quorum of the board present, so we need to make sure that that's noted for public purposes. February 23rd, we have the board learning session we just referred to. March 9th is the next business meeting, followed by April 13th, April 27th, the referendum, which will now take place on May 5th, and the board business meeting on May 11th. With that, I will accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes.